You wise ones, from doctrine great and profound, you who meditate and know it, how, where, and when does everything couple? Why do we love and kiss? You high wise ones, tell me, investigate what I feel, explain to me where, when, how, why did it happen to me so? Arthur Schopenhauer. Have you ever wondered why love strikes like lightning, sudden, overwhelming, and impossible to resist? Is it fate, soulmates, or could it be something far more ancient and far more impersonal? What if that deep, all-consuming feeling isn't actually about you, but about something using you? In this video, we uncover what Arthur Schopenhauer called nature's greatest trick. You're not just falling in love, you're being pulled by a force far older than reason. And once you see it, you can never see love the same way again. The world as will and representation. A quick primer. To understand Schopenhauer's metaphysics of sexual love, we first need a brief recap of his core philosophical framework. He sees the world as having two fundamental aspects. 1. The world as representation, Vorstellung. This is the world as it appears to us, the world we perceive, think about, and understand through our senses and intellect. It's the world of objects in space and time, governed by cause and effect. It's the world as we experience it, analyze it scientifically, and describe it through language and concepts. It's the stage, the show. 2. The world as will. As well. This is the inner essence of everything, the reality in itself, beyond how it appears to us. It's a blind, irrational, ceaseless striving, an urge, an impulsion to exist. It's present in everything, from the force of gravity to the growth of a plant to the actions of a human. It's the puppet master behind the scenes. Schopenhauer argues that this fundamental will, in living beings, manifests most specifically as the will to live. Wille zum Leben. This isn't just about individual survival, it's a deeper, more fundamental drive to exist and to perpetuate existence. It's the same core essence driving you as it is driving an animal, a plant, even geological forces. Our rationality and consciousness are, in a sense, just a froth on the surface, serving the deeper ends of this fundamental willing. Our ability to perceive and investigate the world, primarily developed to manipulate objects to survive and reproduce.
The sexual instinct, the will's sharpest point. Now, where does sexual love fit into this? Schopenhauer argues that the sexual instinct is the most vehement and concentrated manifestation of the will to live. It's the will's sharpest, most powerful point, the punctum saliens, or the kernel of the world egg. Think about its power. It's not like craving a specific food when you're hungry, or a book when you're bored. The sexual instinct is universally present, after a certain age, and incredibly intense. Schopenhauer notes that its immense power has been recognized for centuries in ancient texts and symbols. Its fulfillment is often seen as the summit and crown of happiness. Both animals and humans will face any danger, any struggle for it. Schopenhauer states, quite directly, that the genitals are the parts of the body in which the will manifests itself in its most concentrated form. He even goes so far as to say that the sex drive is the ultimate purpose, the highest goal of life in the natural human being, as it is in the animal. This instinct is common to all living beings, and in animals, its power and directness are plain to see. Schopenhauer mentions the frenzy, frigola, in animals, their vehemence in fulfilling this function. They pursue it relentlessly, sometimes even risking their own survival. And here comes the key Schopenhauerian insight. He argues that this same, raw, powerful instinct is the substance of human sexual love. The intense feelings, the romantic ideals, the sense of deep personal connection, all of it is, at its core, the sexual instinct. nature's greatest trick, the illusion of individual happiness. This is where Schopenhauer introduces one of his most provocative ideas. If the true purpose of this overwhelming instinct is the propagation of the species, and if the individual is just a temporary manifestation of the will to live, then how does nature compel that individual to act against their own self-interest for the benefit of the species? The answer: illusion and deception. Nature deceives the individual will. It creates a powerful, personal feeling, that intense pull, that sense of destiny, that promise of boundless happiness, and ties it to a specific person. It convinces the individual that achieving union with this one person will bring them infinite pleasure and fulfillment. But that feeling, that belief, is an illusion. It's the sense of the species disguising itself as the individual's personal desire. The person believes they're pursuing their own joy, but in reality, they're being compelled to act in the interest of the species. Why this elaborate trick? Because, Schopenhauer explains, individuals are fundamentally egoistic. If the real aims of nature, child-rearing, sacrifice, exhaustion, were presented plainly, the rational individual would likely refuse. Reason isn't strong enough to override self-interest. So instead, nature bypasses reason and appeals directly to the will, using a powerful, irrational instinct cloaked in the dazzling illusion of romance and destiny. Schopenhauer compares this illusion to a mirage or a baited hook. The overwhelming feeling is the bait, promising joy, but the true purpose is hidden beneath. The tragic comedy of love. Understanding love as nature's trick, serving the species rather than the individual, casts a striking light on the drama of human relationships. It explains much of the folly and confusion Schopenhauer observed. Consider the classic narrative of romantic love in both literature and real life. Individuals are driven by overwhelming passion, overcome obstacles, make enormous sacrifices, sometimes even risking their happiness, wealth, social standing, or life itself. From Schopenhauer's perspective, these aren't merely personal dramas. They are the species' will asserting its dominance over the fleeting interests of the individual. Honor, duty, fidelity, and rational self-interest. These often crumble when faced with the raw power of the sexual instinct cloaked as passionate love. Example: Romeo and Juliet. Schopenhauer explicitly references Shakespeare's tragedy. Romeo and Juliet experience what seems like fated, transcendent love, but to Schopenhauer, this is the species' powerful push toward union. They defy their families, break social conventions, and make immense sacrifices. The species' goal, union and procreation, drives the narrative. But the consequence is ruin and death for the individuals. The species may have briefly advanced its aim, but the individuals were destroyed in the process. This perfectly illustrates the conflict between the infinite importance of the species and the disposable nature of the individual in nature's eyes. Schopenhauer also points out that comedy often ends with the species' interest, young lovers uniting, triumphing over individual or societal barriers, such as parental opposition. The audience feels satisfied because at a deeper level, we align unconsciously with the species' success. So powerful is the illusion that when the union is denied, the resulting despair can lead to madness or suicide. The individual, hijacked by the infinite craving of the species' will, finds their personal life meaningless when the species-driven goal is blocked. Moreover, Schopenhauer argues that marriages based solely on passionate love are often unhappy. Why? Because the species' goal, creating an ideal offspring, may unite two people who are deeply incompatible in intellect, temperament, or personality. Once the illusion fades, usually after procreation, the individuals are left to face a potentially miserable life together, having sacrificed their individual happiness for the species' agenda. He even suggests that arranged marriages, or those based on rational considerations like compatibility, status, or shared values, may lead to greater individual happiness than marriages based purely on love. It's a provocative and deeply unsettling idea. The shame, the debt, and the deeper meaning. Schopenhauer goes further still, connecting the sexual act itself to a sense of shame and an existential debt. He observes the universal modesty and secrecy surrounding sex and reproduction. Why, he asks, is something so essential and natural often viewed with discomfort or even repulsion, especially when reflected upon? His answer lies in the broader pessimism of his worldview. For Schopenhauer, life is fundamentally defined by suffering. It is a constant, restless striving, relieved only momentarily before boredom or new desires arise. Existence itself is a burden, a task to be endured, a continual struggle against need. And the sexual act is the mechanism that perpetuates this cycle. It brings new beings into a world filled with pain, need, and death. The act that seems to offer bliss is, in Schopenhauer's view, the gateway through which suffering re-enters the world. This is why, he argues, we experience a deep, often unconscious, sense of shame surrounding it. We intuitively grasp that in a moment of fleeting pleasure, we have incurred a massive metaphysical debt. The existence, suffering, and eventual death of a new individual. In Schopenhauer's words, the parent's voluptuous pleasure creates a debt that the child must pay through a lifetime of hardship. The result? A dark paradox, an act promising delight, which quietly hands down a sentence of pain. What happens after? The deception revealed. If love is an illusion, a grand deception to ensure reproduction, what happens after the great work is done, as Schopenhauer calls it? Often, the passion fades. What once felt overwhelming now feels strange, muted, perhaps even disappointing. The individual may experience a strange disappointment. What was so ardently pursued, so glorified, turns out to have been just a temporary release of instinctual pressure. The dazzling illusion vanishes once its purpose, reproduction, is either achieved or becomes impossible. The individual is left feeling used. They may realize they were driven by a force not their own, a biological imperative masquerading as divine romance. They sacrifice time, energy, even self-worth in pursuit of what they thought would bring fulfillment, only to find they were serving a hidden master, the will of the species. Schopenhauer quotes Plato, "Pleasure is the most boastful of all things. Hedon apanton alazonastaton." It promises the world, but its fulfillment often leaves us hollow, revealing the truth beneath the mask. This realization can be painful. It may lead to conflict, disillusionment, or even existential emptiness, especially in relationships founded entirely on that fleeting passion. Conclusion: lessons from nature's trick and the path to wisdom. So what do we learn from Schopenhauer's stark, unromantic view of sexual love? 1. Recognize the illusion. That overwhelming feeling of destiny, of intense, almost fated attraction, is not what it appears to be. It's a powerful instinct, engineered by the species for its own survival. It feels personal, but it isn't. It's a trick, a deeply rooted biological impulse that may not lead to lasting happiness or meaningful compatibility for the individual. 2. Separate species from self. The will to live, expressed through sexual instinct, has its own purpose, and it isn't your personal well-being. It uses you as a vessel. your desires, your dreams, your hopes for love and fulfillment are often at odds with the blind agenda of the species. 3. Manage expectations. Don't expect instinctual love to rescue you, fix you, or fulfill you. Its goal is not your personal joy, it is reproduction. Once that aim is served or rendered impossible, the illusion tends to fade. Recognizing this can prevent disillusionment later. 4. Seek wisdom over illusion. Schopenhauer believed that philosophy's highest aim is to pierce the veil of Maya, the illusion that shrouds reality. To understand the trick is the beginning of freedom. If you can recognize the impersonal forces that move you, you may begin to reclaim your agency, even if that control is limited. As Schopenhauer writes, understanding this truth should, more than any other means, render us capable of overcoming that passion, if against it, rational considerations had any power. He remained cautious, though. Reason alone is often no match for instinct. 5. The will to wisdom. To embrace this vision is to choose clarity over comfort, insight over sentimentality. It takes courage to question love, to dissect one of the most sacred feelings we know, and to see not a divine mystery, but a biological imperative. That courage, that drive toward truth, is what Schopenhauer would call the will to wisdom, and it may be the only real freedom we have. Schopenhauer's metaphysics of sexual love is not a feel-good doctrine. It strips away the poetry and reveals a harsh but illuminating reality. Love, in its most primal form, is not about you. It is about the species. But in recognizing the trick, perhaps we gain a different kind of strength. The strength to see clearly, to love consciously, and to walk through life with our eyes wide open. But if love is an illusion, crafted by a blind will, what else in our lives might be governed by forces beyond our control? And what happens if we dare to reject the will altogether? That's the question we'll explore in our next video, when we confront Schopenhauer's boldest idea of all, the denial of the will to live. Thank you for watching this episode of The Will to Wisdom. If this video changed how you think about love, or even made you just a little uncomfortable, let me know in the comments below. I read every one of them, and if you're ready to